The page actually. We're on page Dalet. So we explained Oinig, and then with greater difficulty we explained also ratzon. As in both instances, there are two stages in these qualities, in these koiches, so to speak. There is the essential stage, and there is the active stage. It's called viserus. In case of ratzon, the difficulty in the ratzon, even more than in oinig, is to understand that there is a non-functional element in ratzon. Although the ratzon consists in a merutza, and a merutza means a movement, and yet this movement cannot be identified with any object, with any direction. It's an internal element of movement. He's not moving any place. But he has this element of movement, of roots. We discussed this yesterday to the extent possible. This, so to speak, stationary movement is the siba, is the cause. It's what allows for functioning level of movement. We discussed it yesterday, and I want to kind of bring it to a more conclusive, more tangible level. When a person sits still, he still has all these koiches, including the koich of walking, koich halicha. His feet are not only capable of walking, but they are on the ready all the time to walk. And thus, okay, I'd like you to understand this. When he gets up and walks, he does not really sense that he is now made up a dramatic change from his previous state. He was not, his feet were not acting, but now they're acting. It's a completely different state. It is a different state because because that action that was inherent in the feet has now come forward in a gilui, so to speak, in a gilui, on a functioning level. But it is still not a fundamental change. It is not at all like a car that's standing still, and then you put it in gear and begins to move. Because when a car was standing still, it was standing still. It did not have the urge to move. When you put it in gear and it starts moving, that's a totally new state. This is the meaning of the inherent koyach. This is what he says over here. The ratzon, the essential ratzon, is a constant state of movement, which is indiscernible. And then, when this ratzon comes into his soirerus, and he has an aim and he is drawn to something, it is this ratzon that enables this soirerus. I'd like to understand the significance of this. This ratzon, he says, is the siba for his soirerus. It is important to understand. Because again, the whole world is missing this point. In the world, human action, one thing is a reaction. It's not a real proactive state. He needs something, so it's like a car moving. And we are being to explain that this is totally untrue. There's a living nefesh. And the nefesh has a ratzon, as we said all the time, to be everywhere. Not to be anywhere, to be everywhere. What's meant to be not, then he has to be there. But he relates to everything that exists. Everything is his domain. Is in his realm. So when he picks up and walks there, this is not a fundamental change. It's just revealing and functionally achieving that which where he was before. And it is incumbent upon us, this is what the Rebbe says, to understand that there is what's called the etzem ratzon, without any hiserus, which does consist in inner mrutze. There's etzem ha'oinek, without any hiserus, which consists in oinek. And yet this is not called a functioning and active state.
Seems easier to perceive of the oineg as not being an active state, but ratzon is merutza, that's not active. That's like the man sitting.
It is easier to perceive it because we don't understand oineg.
No ratzon.
No, because we understand both of them, both from a superficial and external thing. Oineg is a profound experience. Oineg is misanic. And because he is misanic, he is pleased to be where he is. What he is.
Robert, by Merutza it says on the bottom of the previous page, Shezo Bechinas Giloi Latzmi, and on the top of this one it says, She'ene Bechinas Giloi Klal Gamloi Latzmi.
Okay, it's a good point. And it's an important point to actually focus in and understand how come in one place it says Gilui Ratzon, then it says Ein Bechinas Gilui Ratzon. Mamish within two lines contradicting the Indian. This clearly points up the difficulty that we are facing over here. We want to explain something, an essential state, and this essential state is a presence. Essence is a non-presence. This is an essential state that has a presence. This is why when we initially speak about this essential state, Marutza, we say that this is a Gilui Yatzmi, because there is an element of Gilui. There's an essential state of a presence. Like we said before, that this ratzon, this is what enables all other ratzons.
Enables
all other ratzonos. That's when you had the example of the feet, of the koyach hayad, and sometimes brings down koyach hayad, that the koyach in the hand to act is a present koyach all the time, and it's active internally, but it doesn't do anything. And that's why when it finally be soirus and identified and it is used to do something, he's not out of his domain, out of his realm. He's perfectly at ease. He's mostly at home, so to speak, when a person writes or walks or speaks.
And that's illustrating
that there was this active state of this koyach before it became active. We learned it in the previous hemshech. This statement, machshava meshetet stomit. Anybody remember machshava meshetet stomit? Machshava hovers, is fluttering all the time, even when a person is in perfect rest. Should that machshava meshetet stomit, this is the presence of life in the person. Should, God forbid, for 1 second, this machshava cease, then his connection between the neshama and the guf ceases. That machshava is totally undefinable. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking. And it's not a focused thinking. I'm just aware in my thought of the presence of the neshama. And therefore, when I begin to think of something, It's not a Yiddish said paradigm change. It's not a fundamental change. It's just that my thinking has now been focused on something. I told you the story that I had the experience with this gentleman who was at our table. Remember this? We had about Shuba come to us for years. This man was initially when he was born, he was retarded. They were twins. He and his brother were both retarded. And then, through great training, effort, and so on, they were very active. He's a mathematician and all that. And he says, we all both snapped out of it. They never snapped out of it. They were active. They were able to act or do certain things that you can do without the sense of real life. And it came to focus when one time we were sitting by a table, Friday night, and he was falling asleep. I said to him, Shene Zalman, you're tired? He says, no. How come you're falling asleep? There's nothing going on. You get it? There's nothing going on. No, but we were not talking, we were not engaged in anything. Nothing going on, so he doesn't exist. And one is active only when he is aroused. When he is pricked, that's not life.
In the essential state, we're saying that there's no shaykhus to any. There's no shaykhus to any specific.
No shaykhus to anything. This is his state of being.
Even though he's like on the ready to do all these things.
He's on the ready to do because of himself. He is all on the ready to do because he is on the ready to do, not because something arouses him. Something interesting.
And when he does have a shot, when there is a hisoidus ratzon, that's because something aroused him, or he aroused himself too.
It's both. Then he aroused himself to identify himself with this thing. Ultimately, when he's pursuing anything, it is by his choice.
By his choice, you're focusing on saying not on account of any external element.
That's right.
Okay, so take siba.
I take what?
Siba, right? The ability to write.
Right.
So we're saying he has that inherently, irrespective of whether he's trained yet to, whether he's young or old or knows how to write yet, and then also irrespective of if there's anybody to write to. This is an internal koyach.
This is what we explained before with the koyach hiluch, the koyach hayad.
Right, but he's already there.
The koyach hayad, the hand is alive, but it's not just alive. The koyach hayad is functioning. The koyach hatnuah is in hand all the time.
Koyach hatnu is on hand, even though he's not gone there.
That's right.
And when he does go there, it's not because anybody calls him or he's going there for any purpose.
Because he wants to go there.
Right, and here this wanting is completely internal. There's no secondary cause for this wanting.
That's right. This is what's called etzem. He's a real presence. We're struggling with the word etzem. In the previous Mamre, we say the sun is an etzem behiri. Behiri, by our definition, means something that illuminates. But the sun doesn't have anything to illuminate. There's no darkness in the sun. The nefesh is an etzem chai. Not because it's confronted with a lifeless goof and it becomes active to counter the state of the goof. It's an etzem chai. Where do these qualities come from? This kind of essential presences come from? They come from the godly truth. They all represent the principle of Motzoi Rishon. Motzoi Rishon means something that is there without provocation. So this is why, when we first initially mentioned the Arousal, it's like a Gilui Le'atzmai. But in the real truth, it's not a Gilui at all, because this is the essence. This is the essence itself. Okay. I hope that we are 1 millimeter closer.
Gilui Le'atzmai here would mean that he's delving, or he's sensing the etzem quality. There's some.
Right. It's not Gilui Le'atzmai that he's aware of it. He's not aware of it.
He is aware of his own, like you said, the presence of the neshama, but it's not.
It's not an awareness. It's a presence.
Whereas the second Gilui would be the translation. It's an environment.
He's actually actively pursuing something. This is what I want. There once used a term that was in Shiva. Want to want. Want to want is a want. But there's no Gilui Le'atzmai. Doesn't really want anything.
He's just kind of in himself.
Mona says that there was the Mechuzah, Bnei Mechuzah. Bnei Mechuzah were very hardy first people. And when they did not work, it affected their health. So if you hired workers and you canceled, didn't have work to do. So in other cases, you reduce their thing because you spare them the effort of working. For them, you have to increase it because you propose it causing them suffering. Okay, this is it. Have a great day.
Yeah.